Being a real estate agent can be somewhat isolating, especially coming out of post-COVID. So many people like to work from home. We're really social creatures, especially realtors are incredibly social creatures. And so what we've started doing is about once a month, we hold what was a breakfast club meeting where we come in, we discuss current topics, issues they're having with certain listings. Why isn't this selling? We just started it in the 7700 France office. Had 6 or 7 people for the first meeting. It ballooned up to, at the high point, about 55 agents, which got a little too much.
Hey everybody, we are here with Gary Judson from REMAX Results. Gary is one of our esteemed agents out of the Edina, France office location. Gary's been with us for a few years. He's been in the business a few years longer than that. We're going to get into it and talk to him about how he is currently having his busiest fall ever, despite the fact that for a lot of agents that are out there right now in this market, in the election cycle and everything else we're dealing with, is seeming to be a little bit of a slower developing fall than they would have maybe expected. But we'll get into all that in just a second. But first and foremost, Gary, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Ed.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, before we really get into the meat and potatoes of your business and how you got to this point. I mean, where was little Gary born? I want to know the backstory. We got to go all the way back to the beginning here.
Okay. It's a great story, actually. My parents met in Iowa City, Iowa. My father had just finished. He just gotten out of the Korean War, was heading west to Seattle. This is a great story, by the way.
Okay.
Heading west to Seattle, he was going to work with Theodore Roethke, a famous poet, at the University of Washington. Coming over in Illinois, he hit a hill, came down, and was pulled over for a speeding ticket. They took him into a little court, made him pay $65. He didn't have a credit card, he didn't have cash, and he certainly didn't have enough money to get to the West Coast.
Because he was studying to be a poet.
Yeah, correct.
He famously not a high lucrative. Okay.
Come on, let's be serious.
Yeah.
But he had been accepted at the University of Iowa, where actually Jonathan Irving, who wrote World According to Garp, was in the same program at the time. So he pulled into Iowa City, talked to the professor. He said, "We'd love to have you." John, his name was. His middle name was Irving as well, so they were always getting confused. And so he went to graduate school at the University of Iowa, met my mother, and the rest is history. So I was born in Grinnell, Iowa, about 3 or 4 years later.
Because of a speeding ticket.
Because of a speeding ticket.
Which I assume he eventually paid off.
He paid it off that night, which is why he had no money to move forward. And so that was kind of a neat little story.
Wow.
And then from there we grew up. My dad was a professor then of English and creative writing. We moved to La Crosse, Wisconsin when I was 5, and that's where I grew up.
Okay. All right. And then how did you navigate yourself? I mean, going through high school and everything else, did you immediately say, I'm not going to follow my father's footsteps, being an English professor or creative writer, or what led you to real estate?
That's a great question, because actually I did graduate with an English degree and American history minor from Ripon College over in Wisconsin. Okay. Birthplace of the Republican Party, by the way. They were there last week.
That's right.
It was such a surprise. So I then worked in a couple of jobs in writing, in journalism.
Okay.
What's so funny is, as I was pulling in here, I also stumbled into credit unions, and for 12 years was vice president of marketing for credit unions, including the Building Trades Credit Union right around the corner.
Oh, okay.
So I hadn't been up here for a while, and as I'm pulling in, here's my old job.
Writing copy and just doing all that stuff.
Copy, yeah.
Before AI, before ChatGPT.
Correct. Yeah. Websites were kind of new, and it was more direct mail type marketing. Mm-hmm. But you learn your language and you learn what works, and you also never. I had a boss. Another funny story. He said, "Never use an asterisk because they're trying to screw you." So it was like, never put an asterisk in your writing.
Yeah, it's a technical writing. So I was also an English major.
You were?
Creative writing major.
I had no idea.
And I wanted to write and go be a professor somewhere, and found my way into law school instead. But I used that every single day, the creative writing, and being able to articulate complex issues in simplified language. That's what I do every day. That's what realtors do every single day, right?
Absolutely.
Explaining
Yes.
contracts, but also writing good contracts and stuff. So yeah.
Correct. Yeah, the right verbiage, and so I still enjoy that, the placement of words, which
Yeah.
I'm sure you do as well.
So us, Garrison Keeler, John Mulaney, a lot of English majors out there trying to make their way in the world. Yeah. Okay. So then what led you ultimately to get into the real estate profession? How'd you get the bug?
Okay, so I had always loved it. I would go to open houses. I would keep track of what was going on in the neighborhood. When we had moved back to, we had lived in my first wife in California, North Carolina, and we came back to have our children here. And Julia was born 2 weeks after we got back to Minneapolis. I was getting a degree in a master's in teaching at Hamlin, and I thought, well, I'll get a real estate degree and do real estate in the summer. I'll sell homes in the summer as my summer job, having seen my dad as a teacher, having summers down. And it just took over. I fell in love with it. Okay. And eventually left the teaching aspect.
So you finished the master's degree though in teaching?
I was just a few credits short, but I was rolling so well in real estate. I just kind of kept going.
And when was that? When was
Oh my gosh, that was 2009.
Okay.
Yeah, relatively recently.
Okay, but 2009, that was just sort of coming out of a pretty rough time, but things were maybe get on the upswing, right?
I came in right at the crash.
Yeah.
And so that's why I never take anything for granted, because after being through that, you can kind of ride anything out. You kind of fight for every inch, every home.
So what did you attribute sort of that initial immediate success to building your business at that time frame back in 2009? I mean, because you're also not a native Twin Cities right? So, and you're coming from moving around a few places, and how did that work? How did you build?
It really just step by step at that time. It was, and I think right now new agents must be facing similar challenges that we faced when I was getting started after the crash, in that, now they're dealing with this new buyer rep situation. It's always tough to get started in a business. But essentially when I got a client, I was thinking about this. We would go out and we would look at 14 homes. And then the next day we'd go look at another 14 because there was so many homes on the market. Yeah. So when you did find one, you kind of locked in, learned your systems, and then hopefully could work that and begin to build your network.
Okay. But that also
in your sphere
had to have been a lot of, driving time, a lot of, not to say wasted time because it's client time, but at the same time, want to refine those processes down if you can, to make things as efficient as possible, not just for you, but for the clients too.
Great question.
Right.
Yeah. I find that every showing people are like, we don't want to bother you. And I'm like, this is my job. If I can go see a house up in Matamita, now I understand that market a little better.
Sure.
If I can go see 3 homes over here, now I have a better sense of this middle Minneapolis market.
Yeah.
It's always changing. So to see what's out there and what they like as well changes.
So whatever the last, dozen or so years, how have you kind of worked to evolve your business from that sort of initial foundational business plan that you maybe initially had?
It's one thing that's really similar is everyone needs a different level of help. Whether they be elderly, whether they have children and are just too busy to do the lawn work or trim the branches. And I don't mind helping to do that, because anything that can help me sell that home faster and get them where they're going and feel like you have their back, I do that. Okay. I'm doing some landscaping out at a house we're getting ready in Burnsville after this meeting. Okay. And so I don't know. I try to not just look at it as I'm writing the offer and you're going to do this. You really have to go that extra inch. And I talk about this with on our Zoom calls with other agents as well, taking the paint to hazardous waste for them. Things that can be a huge help to them.
Yeah, apropos of that. So everyone needs a little bit of help. One of the things that you have done, I think in partnership with some of our other sales executives, you've been kind of like one of the founding members of this breakfast club concept, right? Which is, we'll talk a little bit about, tell everyone about the breakfast club.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it was one thing that being a real estate agent can be somewhat isolating, especially coming out of post-COVID. So many people like to work from home. And we're really social creatures, especially realtors are incredibly social creatures. And so what we've started doing is about once a month, we hold what was a breakfast club meeting where we come in, we discuss current topics, anything, issues they're having with certain listings. Why isn't this selling? What would you do in this situation? But really like an idea share. And it started growing. We just started it in the 7700 France office, had 6 or 7 people for the first meeting. It ballooned up to, at the high point, about 55 agents, which got a little too much to really have a discussion.
Right.
And now we backed off, where the people that show up are between 20 and 30 agents, and they're from all parts of town, so that's helpful too. If I have a question, I can talk to this agent in Waconia or this agent in St. Paul or this agent in Plymouth that know the market better than I. So it's helpful that way too. We network each other. I've had a couple of deals come through because of the Breakfast Club from a woman who had an investor, and I had investment type properties.
Yeah, but the important thing too is like whether there's breakfast served or not. I mean, this is not just a show up. There's an agenda. There's expectations and kind of structure, right? To make sure that it doesn't become just a social hour, right?
Absolutely.
Or a gripe session, right? I mean,
Correct.
not all the time. So I mean, did that just happen right away? Was that something that you were deliberate in making sure that was part of the?
That's a great question, because it did start as more of a free-for-all, but we would have like one major topic. Now we have 2 or 3, and we try to stay on that. We try to do it in an hour and an hour 15.
Yeah.
People are always busy. They think they're going to be there, and then that showing comes in, and business always takes precedence. But they show in and they share, and they're very giving in their knowledge, and I think it helps us all be better agents and feel more connected within the company.
Sure. And there's different, I guess, concepts I know exist elsewhere in our company, whether we call them, mastermind groups or other things, right? I mean, there are ninja training, groups and all those things. It's a similar concept, but the idea is these are agent-focused, agent-led, right?
Correct.
Agendas, right? And so they're designed by people like you who put the time in, and kind of want to commend you and Jesse and everyone who's been instrumental in getting that group going for the fact that you taking ownership of something that benefits you, but certainly benefits everyone else who attends. I've been to a few of those meetings, been a wallflower, and
been very helpful.
And it's great to see. Right.
Thank you. Jesse Carlson, who it was sort of our idea together, and it's ballooned. And one thing we also included in this meeting is if anyone sees this and wants to join, it's like we haven't capped it.
Yeah.
If you want to come, please come from wherever you are.
Right.
And the biggest trouble we have is trying not to line it up on events when there's other training or other things going on within the company, and that's a tricky
that's
balance.
always hard. So it's normally Tuesday. Or is it
usually, well, we're going to try and move it to Thursday. We moved it to a Wednesday and had some conflicts, but we're trying to lock into a certain time.
Okay. Well, that's always the thing is you tweak something and see if it works better. Try something and then pull back if it doesn't. So we were talking before we started recording that you were saying that this has been your busiest fall that you can remember in your business. And I thought that was noteworthy just because as we're sitting here recording this, inventory is down, transactions are generally across the state and all the MLSs is down. It just happens to be that there are a few weighted factors. Statistically, every year there's a drop during an election cycle. That's just a thing that happens. With interest rates and some of the other things dragging down some transaction volume that I think affects. Ultimately, that just reflects that individual clients and consumers are making or choosing not to dive in, so to speak, in this market right now. Just maybe saying, I'll wait till next spring or I'll wait till things are different. But that is not what you're seeing. Not within your clients and your sphere and your business right now.
Not right now. In fact, the one point I love the fall market, and I love, we're coming into that November, December, best time ever to buy a house in Minnesota year after year. But no one likes to do it because they're keyed in on the family with Thanksgiving and Christmas. And so what I I love this time. I met with a couple from California. They were moving here. They said, we had lunch, which is what I like to do. I like to sit down. I don't want to meet them at the showing for the first time. I want to go to breakfast or lunch, talk about what they're looking for, get a sense of where they're coming from. And we went out and looked at 7 homes that day in South Minneapolis, and they kept saying, we're not in any rush. We're not in any rush. Well, they loved one of the homes. We negotiated on it, and they got it. And so they were very excited that this was everything we wanted, and we were able to get the inspection. We were able to get some post-inspection things done as well. And that's sort of the way it's been. No one wants to be pressured in this business. And if we, as realtors, can just wait it out.
Yeah.
And some of that, I've waited out some people that were looking for new construction, wanted to find a house to tear down or a big lot, and suddenly that became available. So that's moving forward. So a lot of it is just having a lot of irons in the fire.
Sure.
And they come due when they come due.
And so what are the sources of those different like opportunities, those leads? Are they come from a variety of locations or like leads or?
Yeah, usually referrals. I just think you have to build it through a referral business. You do a good job for people. They refer you to their children to find a home. They refer you to friends.
Okay.
You build the trust and move forward. And if you're doing it right, hopefully that's
Okay.
where that's coming from.
Okay.
Yeah. And other ones though too, it may take a while to come back to you.
Sure.
Like in these people, we've been looking probably for 4 or 5 years, and suddenly they find that lot they're looking for.
So how do you a 4 or 5 year sort of relationship? How do you cultivate that, maintain that without it without placing too much pressure and run the risk of turning them off or kind of driving them away?
That's a great question. I always try to find excuses to send people notes. It may be a story I read in the Star Tribune, something funny online. Oh, I saw this concert note. Oh, whatever. And then, or like, for instance, I keep searches going for them, but I don't send them that search, this land search. And it's like, oh my gosh, there's a half acre that just popped up in Minnetonka, and I'll find it and forward it to them by text.
So you're setting up the search, but it's coming to you.
Only to me.
And then if you're kind of selectively.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I spend that first hour and a half every morning. It's like, oh, this one out here, or it may be on a search that they have set up, and I still will text them the link to that just to say, hey, I don't know if you saw this one.
Right.
But they really want, I've realized as I work in the business more, some people just send out a search and wait for the client to say, hey, I want to go see this. I sometimes, shake that tree a little and it's like, did you see this?
Absolutely.
I think we should go see this. Or if you can't, can I go preview it for you? That's the one thing that people don't realize we do as well. We can go out and preview because we may walk through and go, oh my gosh, and it smells like smoke. You don't want this one.
Or like, the master bedroom is tiny. Like,
Correct.
I mean, you're just
Correct.
like, I know what you guys would like, but
Yeah, we know what they want, and it saves them the leg. They don't realize this. Sometimes they don't think about it, that it's our job.
Right.
And again, I'll go out and preview it because it helps me to know a better sense of what's in that market. And it might be a house that fits for another client even.
Yeah, and it's sort of leveling them, just assuming that the drip emails take care of themselves. I mean, it assumes that they're reading them, and people have different, especially over like a long-term time frame, like life happens, kids. It's like,
oh my gosh,
if they don't read that email or they get tired of it, right? I think you definitely run that risk of running out of steam with a client over a multi-year relationship if you're not actively but passively engaged with them, if that makes sense, right?
Right. Yeah, it's not an every weekend thing, but it's something, where that very special one comes on board. And that case of September, the weather was so good that I get people checked out. They went to the lake, they went fishing. Another 84-degree day, let's go see the Twins. Whatever it was.
Yeah.
It was such a perfect stretch that I think real estate kind of took a little, took the back seat on that one. Yeah. But I think that's, just kind of also, we always see it where they'll come back into town after the weekend and see that house that they missed.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my gosh, and too late, it's under contract. So those, if we can stay ahead of those, that'd be helpful.
With you said fall is your favorite time, and going into the winter being, is that something that then you're actively talking to current clients about strategizing for the winter market as a an opportunity to try to take advantage of? What does that conversation look like?
Yeah, great question. Absolutely, because springtime, we all know it's crazy in the Twin Cities. It's just for some reason we come out of winter, everyone loves to go out and they want that new cave. That's it. I'm done with this place. I'm moving out. I'm someplace smaller, someplace on water, someplace bigger. And so spring is always crazy. That's when we see the offers, the multiple offers, the no inspections. I love fall because oftentimes I've had couples that get beat out in multiple offers all spring, and they come back to me in August, and I'm like, great timing. And sure enough, we get out there and there's homes available. We get an inspection. We maybe get some closing costs, but they're also getting into that home in a good time of year before the snow falls, and they start to enjoy the home. And then here comes spring again. Yeah. And wow, look, this house across the street sold for more than ours, and ours is way better. And things start to happen. The market has been so positive in the Twin Cities, but that spring market is bonkers. Yeah. And if I can keep people out, I don't want to say like I control that, but if I can keep people from having to compete in that and lose out in that.
Right. That's where
absolutely
the competitiveness. I mean, yes, probably less inventory in the winter, but you're not competing with potentially multiple other buyers on a right. Not to say overpaying, but going further than maybe. Yeah. So do you also, I mean, with a winter looking at like a winter market, do you track existing listings, monitor as they cancel, because we're just talking to somebody else about the idea that they had a listing where the seller was going to pull it back and take off for the winter, but the agent said, let me just call around to the people who wrote those low offers before, and sure enough, one of them came back.
Love it.
And tried to snagged it before it disappeared. Right.
Right.
I mean, there's an opportunity there to do the job. Right. That is what we do.
Right.
Right. Is we make the phone calls. We, put the work in.
That may have been the hot home that weekend. It went into multiples. Everyone went away from it. So that's a great, I don't like to chase expireds or canceleds, but I do like to do it in the case of
for a buyer,
for my buyer.
Right.
Yes.
So not chasing him as a listing agent.
As a relist. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, it's a great, because nobody wants to hold a home through the winter if they can avoid it. So
because they're stuck in that cave for another.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Is there anything in particular from, this market, the Breakfast Club, just everything that as you're learning to find footing under the new NAR rules and everything else that you've found either particularly helpful or challenging as like we all are adjusting to the new normal? Is there anything that comes to mind?
It's what I have noticed and had a fair amount of transactions here in the last couple of months is I sense that agents from all brokerages are protecting that 2.5, 2.7%. They write it into the purchase agreement. They always call me to ask, are you paying it out? And I indicate that, to write what your number is on 406 that you've discussed with your buyer in case it is lower, and in some cases it is. But overall, I'm seeing more a sort of an honoring and a protecting of the industry that buyer's agents are important. And we know that as a buyer, it's tough to get that money for a down payment. Yeah. And you also want to put more down than you can to if you can eliminate the mortgage insurance or whatever it is. But I think it's what I'm seeing in general is that it's pretty much the same as it was. I'm not seeing a big change. I'm not seeing the 2% listings, or I'm not saying, we're not going to pay that. And I've also, when I've had the listing appointments with sellers, they understand. I said, you have the option to not pay. You can list at 0%. Right. I don't know how many showings you'll get. Right. And I don't know if a person will write an offer and we may not want to do that then. Right. So here's some alternatives,
Well, what would you say the kind of ratio do you have a pretty balanced client book?
Yeah,
is it listings,
pretty much right now.
Listing to buyers?
I was about 50-50.
Okay. Has that always been the case? Last couple of years?
The last few years, it's been more heavy towards the lists.
Okay.
Yeah, not as many. I've had more buyers this year, and I love working with buyers. That's my favorite part of the job.
Yeah.
Going out and seeing homes and what works and what doesn't.
Because you've been doing that since before you even got your license,
right?
Yeah. What about
exactly?
Yeah. Does that
stupid neighbor?
So that I would agree with you. I think that part of the experience, there's a trade-off of drive time and gas and everything else, but you get to spend time with people, see what what piques their interest, and kind of play matchmaker a little bit, and also learn. Right, we are constantly finding these new neighborhoods and places to, learn more about the geography around us. Right.
Exactly, and as you know the city, you have certain places. So when people do select a cool area, you can help support them in that. I recently had a first-time buyer who she's under contract now for a condominium on Lake Harriet, and we toured it's a very small place, but we go up to the roof, and there's a rooftop $1 million view of Lake Harriet, and there's people up there that live in the building, and I'm just like, how can you beat this?
Yeah.
This one of the premier lakes in the Twin Cities, and you can come up here and work with your laptop. You could come up here and have a glass of wine after dinner. This is just like a lifestyle you can't get in any other condo in town, really. And so there's very exciting things like that. And we'll go out, and we still went out and looked at some other condos, but in the end, you can't get away from something like that.
Right.
I'm so excited for that opportunity for her.
The emotional component of
so true.
Real estate is real, right? I mean, it hits you a different way. You can't really shake that.
The numbers make sense, but it has to be an emotional impact.
Yeah,
for sure.
Anything looking forward, looking up besides looking forward to the winter, but looking into the next year that you're either professionally or personally excited about or looking forward to? Anything on the horizon for Gary Judson specifically that you're thinking about?
Well, I'm on a personal level, I have my 10th anniversary on Valentine's Day next year, and so my wife Terry and I are going to Belize.
Ooh.
Belize it or not.
Okay.
And that's thank you very much. So that I'm really excited about that. And then, but also with the spring market wise, I just think it's going to be a crazy spring, and the other agents I talk to do as well.
Yeah. Just the pent up for the last kind of year, like this half of the year, it's going to open up. But like you said, the bears coming out of their caves. It just happens, right?
Well, and we'll also be past the election. I'm confused why I am excited by the people that are buying right now, because I don't understand. The stock market's doing great. Rates are good. I think they're going to drop again. We've been saying that for a while, but I think if we get under 6%, it's going to be a crazy spring market.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm excited about that. Obviously, some better inventory coming on would be great as well. But the cities, the Twin Cities, employment, economy seems strong. The state seems strong. So I think it's a great place to live.
Yeah.
And still far more affordable than many metropolitan areas.
Right. Well, I'm sure that those clients from California were awfully happy with
they had a 2-bedroom. They were outside of LA, and they were paying $3,300 a month.
Okay.
So their mortgage on their 4-bedroom, 3-bath home now is $2,200. So
even with a rate
pretty
that
happy.
Maybe is
right.
Like,
and even not the best rate in the world. So
Well, as we wrap, Gary, is there any, as you think about your career and what you got to this point, besides the police officer that pulled your father over way back when, that you would want to?
I would like to thank him.
Yeah,
wherever you are, sir.
So besides him, like anybody else that you would want to call out or just thank in terms of supporting your business and getting you to this place where you're at right now today?
Oh, thank you. I like to thank all my clients, because I love working with you, and thank you for helping me have this career. Thanks to my lovely wife, Terry. Thanks to all my friends. We have a great time playing pickleball and going to concerts. Thanks to my mom. She's 92, and she just moved into a new assisted living, a new one from one she had been in, not because she needed the care, just because she wanted something new and exciting. So she's awesome. And and to my children, I got 4 children, and just watching them be adult children, moving into college and failing and succeeding. I'm just proud of them all. And life is good.
All right, Gary,
Thanks,
thank you
Ed.
so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.